I'm going to start out with SIG Sauer's Elite Performance Ammo. This is 124 grain ball. Take away any excuses about ammo causing any issues, because this is ammo that I definitely trust. And I'm going to fill both magazines right up with 12, which is all I got, folks. 2 magazines of 12. I'm really pretty annoyed that I'm really kind of pissed that my 15 round magazine that I bought for the P365 didn't come with 2 base plates like everybody else's did. So I'm stuck with just these 2. That's it. That's all I got. Okay, you can't see me, but you can hear me. I am a disembodied voice. All right, very first shots through the P365 XL, and I'm going to have the camera from 2 different angles, 2 different cameras, tight on the pistol, so that if it runs, that's great. If it doesn't run, hopefully, the camera can help us figure out why. So here we go, very first shots. Went into battery okay. Okay, that's better than I expected. Although I can feel that slide sort of lumbering forward. So far so good. Looks like it's going to run. Okay, let's put a bunch of rounds through this thing and see if it loosens up. So far so good. Looks like it's going to run. Okay, most of you probably know, but maybe not everybody watching. So when I first picked up this gun, which was just the other day, right out of the box it had a problem where if you dry fired it and held the trigger back, the slide would not move rearward. It was extremely tight, very locked up. And you can hear right now and see that it's having that same issue. However, now it is much easier to overcome that barrier, whereas before it was extremely difficult. So it is loosening up, and whatever that obstruction is or that interference is starting to wear, obviously. So I'm hoping that with time and a lot more rounds, that will wear away to not really be an issue, because I don't think it should be that difficult to move that slide back. But that was the only problem I had. I did make a reference in that video. In fact, I basically made the title of that video a reference to the Military Arms Channel, and the fact that, you know, since Military Arms Channel had just done their initial look at the P365 XL, and Tim was ecstatic that he got one that he liked, that was working good and all that, and if you don't know, he's had a history of problems. So I thought that, well, if he got the good one and I got the bad one, then they accidentally sent me his. So that's that whole reference. And so in homage of Military Arms Channel today, I am wearing the Military Arms Channel patch. Okay, so I've put 2 magazines full. That's 24 rounds through this gun so far, and let's just do a quick function check on that tight slide issue, see where it is. So racking it empty like that with your finger off the trigger, that's no problem. But now if I dry fire, now try it again, it's easier. It's still tight, but it's much easier. Again, dry fire, it's tight, it doesn't move easily, but it's much easier to break past that obstruction. So I'm hoping the more rounds I shoot, the better that'll get. And speaking of shooting more rounds, let's get to doing that. All right, I know it'll run, so let's run it. That little steel target is 15 yards down range. Let's see how I can do with it. Looks like a dead center hold will get it right where you want it. Yep. Dead center hold. Has the same excellent front sight as the P365. The rear sight is a little bit different. Same basic configuration, but slightly different. This video is brought to you in part by the Sportsman's Guide. They are like your one-stop shopping for everything. Definitely go check them out. Go spend some money. And as always, huge thanks to the Just an Opinion channel Patreon patrons. Okay, I'm switching over to some MagTek ammo, and I'm going to up the stakes a little bit. All right, I'm going to go for this shooting tree, which is a little more difficult, or a lot more difficult, depending on how you want to look at it. If you look at it from where I am, it's a lot more difficult. Nope. All right, I got 6 swingers in less than 12 rounds. That's, for me, that's a win. No. I could have cleaned it, man. I could have cleaned it if I'd had enough ammo. I can barely see those swingers, though. I'm going to have to paint them pink, I think. Okay. The bottom one wants to give me a hard time, doesn't it? Man, it's hard to pull that slide back still. Still shooting MagTek ammo. 115 grain ball at the shooting tree. That slide is still a little harder to work back than I would like. All right, I have five swingers on that tree. I removed the bottom one because right behind it at the angle I'm shooting is that log that's, holding the berm in place. And I didn't want to miss the steel and hit that round wood and send a round in a direction I don't intend. So anyway, that's why I'm down to 5 plates. I think when I miss, I'm missing high. She does shoot nice, I will tell you. Gun shoots nice. It feels very much like the P365, as it should. .98 rounds so far through it. Let's see. Okay, much better than it was. Of course, once you break it loose, then it is pretty easy. But so if I dry fire again, it still wants to lock up, but it's a lot easier to break free. So I think that's going to work loose. Whatever interference was causing that, I think is going to wear away. So I'm going to be really interested to get this back to the bench, strip it down, and see if I can see significant wear on any parts where that was occurring. Just a quick run through the spec numbers on this gun. The barrel is 3.7 inches long. Overall length of the gun is 6.6 inches, and that includes that slightly enhanced beaver tail. The width remains at just 1.1 inches, so it is still very, very skinny. Height of the pistol is 4.8 inches, which still keeps it in the parameters for a good concealed carry gun. You could tuck this inside the waistband, and it shouldn't print much. And the weight is just 20.7 ounces. Okay, I've been banging steel for about 100 rounds, so let's try and put some on paper and see if I can make a halfway decent group. I am 15 yards away from the orange dots you see on that target. I'm going to start out with SIG Sauer's Elite Performance V-Crown. 124 grain. This is my preferred carry ammo. I love this stuff. All right, I'll go to the target on the left. Okay, so that was 12, and it looks like, judging by the daylight shining through, maybe a couple around the edge, but most of them hit the orange, which is good because that's what I was trying to do. Back to regular old MagTek. I find MagTek to be affordable and good quality, just great everyday range ammo stuff. As you can see, the slide stop also works as a slide release like it's supposed to. All right, target on the right. looks like maybe not quite as good, but certainly respectful. Chalk those misses up to the user. Shooter error. The more I shoot the gun, the easier it's getting after holding the trigger back to move the slide back. So I'm very encouraged by that, and I'm quite pleased by that too, because I definitely didn't want the gun to fail. If you watch my channel much, you know that I tend to like a gun by default. And so a gun would have to really piss me off or really just be bad for me to not like it. So I'm very pleased that it looks like this one is going to be okay. So now let me just concentrate on all the other aspects, like these amazing sights, excellent ergonomics, and I haven't even talked about the trigger yet. Which is very, very nice. I like the flat trigger, I like the way it feels, I like the way it breaks, and the way it resets. But I think this one is also a slight bit crisper than the P365. I'm not going to do a comparison today against the P365, like trigger and all that, although I may measure them both. We can do that. There's no reason we can't put them both on a gauge and measure them. But this one feels at least as good and maybe better. Gun seems to shoot a little flatter, and we'd expect that with that slightly longer barrel, a little bit more weight out front. All the steel targets used today in this video were provided to the channel by Tactical AR500 targets. They make, in my opinion, the best steel targets on the market. They are fantastic. So this gun is, of course, every bit as tiny in the hand as the P365. It just has a longer grip, so you can get all your digits around it, unless you're real big. And it has a slightly longer barrel and slightly longer slide, so a little bit more sight radius, which can be good. It is interesting to me, though, that so many companies now are doing the 4-inch Micro 9, and others have abandoned it. It'll be interesting to see from the market's perspective who's right. I think I'm about 250 rounds in, and it's starting to get warm. Between all the shooting and the sun, this gun is starting to get a little bit warm. Hold it. All right, so it looks like the problem with this pistol is definitely working itself out, and I'm very happy about that. For one thing, at the very basic level, I didn't want to throw my money away on a gun that was going to have a problem. Number two, I'm a SIG fan. I really like SIG Sauers. I think they are doing more innovating than almost any other company out there in the firearms industry. And I love the P365, and I was lucky and I haven't had any problems with mine except for one magazine I was able to isolate. And I was really rooting for this one to be a success. I'm not sure yet whether this is a gun that I would carry over the P365 because the extra length limits some things, makes it, pretty much takes it out of the running as a pocket carry gun. You know, I'm not a huge guy, so I'm not real tall, and I don't have deep pockets in in any way whatsoever. So that extra, you know, that extra inch or so really makes a difference whether you can pocket carry a gun or not. And the extra height of the grip makes a difference too, not only for pocket carry, but for, you know, regular waistband carry at the 4 o'clock position or whatever, because that's going to make you print more. So I don't know that this is a gun I would carry, certainly not over the P365 probably. For the sake of 2 rounds, so what? I mean, I've got tons of 12 round magazines for the P365. I could either put one of those magazines in it and carry it, or what I usually do is carry the 12 round as my backup magazine and have the 10 round magazine in the gun. That said, I am a huge fan of choices. Choices are always good, and what I prefer is probably not what you prefer, and so on. It's nice to see that it looks like this is going to be a very viable and desirable choice for a lot of folks. Although that takedown lever does beat my thumb up a little bit if I'm not careful how I hold it. Okay, this will make it 300 rounds today through this gun. At 300 rounds with 0 malfunctions of any kind, with terrific accuracy and quite enjoyable shooting. All right, so this is going to do it for the outdoor part. See you back inside. We'll wrap this up. Okay, so I cleaned it and lubed it, and then I shot 300 rounds. Now I've cleaned it again, but I have not oiled it yet. So it is dry, should be clean and dry. And there are several places where I can definitely see that it has worn in a bit. Much of that is just normal for any gun. Like you can see that the rails here in the frame have polished up nicely. In the front, very much so. In the back, in a couple of different spots, so you can see where your high spots are and your low spots. There's considerable wear right back here. Very considerable wear, and I'm just about convinced myself that that may be where the hang-up is, although I am not positive. In the slide, there's also some wear. There's definitely wear here on the foot of the striker. There's some wear on the side of the firing pin safety plunger. And everything else looks pretty normal as well. So I looked at the barrel and the hood. Again, a little bit of normal wear. Very typical. I'm not seeing anything that I consider to be abnormal, except for maybe that corner right there. That's pretty pronounced. I love SIG Sauer's barrels. The finish on their barrels is just about the best I can think of in the industry as far as not showing wear. I mean, any other brand, you would have all kinds of smiley faces and chatter marks and wear marks after 300 rounds, no matter how much lube you had on it. SIG, man, it just never shows it. There's a lot of wear right in this side, and maybe just right there. You can see the light catching it. A lot of wear right there. Okay, and then we've got some wear here on the foot of the striker itself. What I really noticed was all this wear here. Again, on this side, there's a little nub that sticks up right there where I'm touching, and there's a lot of wear on that, a lot of abrasion, and that whole part is just exhibiting quite a bit of friction wear. as soon as I pull the trigger back, alright, so this is up and it's holding. So right at the front of this thing, right at that very front tip, you can see some peening. So I'm wondering if that's not the culprit right there, that tiny little guy right there, because like I say, you could overcome it, but it was tough. Alright, and just to complete, for any questions you guys might have, there's a look at guide rod and recoil spring assembly, and there's not a mark on that, so I could look at part wear and speculate all day long, but this is not a scientific method by any means, and I am not an expert, so I don't know. Just showing you what I see and talking about the things that I find curious or interesting. Alright, just for fun, I'm going to assemble this pistol with no oil, totally dry, no oil. After 300 rounds, and even after the first, less than 100 rounds, I could tell the difference, but after 300 rounds, it definitely seemed to lighten things up, wear things in. So I'm holding the trigger back, much easier. It's still tight, that first pull, but much easier than it was before. So we've definitely worn some metal down. We've let metal on metal friction polish things up, and whatever the culprit is, seems to be working itself out. So, unresolved mystery, I suppose, but the good news is that the gun is functioning just fine. And now that I am able to rack the slide, let's test the trigger. Oh man, that is nice. 4.8, so that is 4.5 pounds, just about exactly. The trigger is designed to be straight at 90 degrees when it's fully pulled. A little bit of take up to there. You're at the wall. Nice break, and you can see that once you finish the break, that trigger is about 90 degrees, straight up and down. Reset. Short, very loud, and very tactile. And you are right there again at the wall. There is no creep or take up. No sponginess whatsoever. It's very, very crisp. And very nice break. Okay, and finally, here's a shot of some of the primers on the spent cases from some of the ammo that I shot. I shot a great variety of ammo, and I tried to represent that here, although I think I have two from PMC. I've got one SIG nickel and one SIG brass, and they do use different primers for that. But you can see that the striker marks are all very consistent, and we're not seeing that striker drag, and I do see that on my P365. I know others have shown this, so I'm not trying to provide any breaking news, but adding to the data points, so for whatever it's worth to you, my copy of this pistol is also showing very nice firing pin performance.